Did you make the trek to Cooperstown to just see what was contained? You did? Okay.
I definitely had to do that to get the pictures for the book.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. I went to the library. Ahead of time, I contacted them and I told them the names of the 24 guys I needed. And they came out with these 2 long rolling carts of all these files. They had enormous files in each guy, and I just loved looking at all the pictures. It was hard to make selections.
Wow. Can you, let's talk a little bit about, I believe you're up to now 35 books or so?
Yes.
Do you have a, I guess it'd be tough to ask, but I'll ask it. Do you have a, aside from the 300 Club, do you have a favorite?
I think I do. And as a New Yorker, actually I live in New Jersey, but New York metro area, it's got to be the Ron Bloomberg book called Designated Hebrew. And that came about because Dick Schaap once said to Bloomberg years after he retired, what was it like to be the first DH? And Bloomberg, who was supposed to be the Jewish Mickey Mantle, said, what do you mean, Dick? Designated Hebrew? And Dick Schaap said, that's a book. So I did that book with Ron. That was a lot of fun to do.
Wow. You also have done work with the gents behind the mics, the voices of baseball. Can you talk a little bit about Milo Hamilton?
Yes, Milo Hamilton is one of 4 active announcers in their 80s, still working. Now he does only Astros home games. He doesn't do the road games anymore because the travel became too difficult. However, he is out to set a record for broadcasting from the most different Major League ballparks. So he is coming to Yankee Stadium when the Astros are here in June because he hasn't been to the new Yankee Stadium. Mm-hmm. He's already been to the new Citi Field, the home of the Mets that opened up last year. And so I think he's on his 63rd different Major League ballpark that he's broadcast from. He started in 1953 with the St. Louis Browns. Now, Vin Scully, I'm sure, is close, but Vin also doesn't do road games anymore, so Milo wants to top Vin.
When you are a speaker that goes before a number of community groups, and I believe you've been all over the country, but I'm just curious, here in the New York metro area, can you give us the type of questions that are posed to you by baseball fans? I mean, is there a top 3 or areas that they touch upon to you?
Well, the boys and the men have different questions than the women.
Okay.
The boys primarily ask, who's a nice guy? Who's the easiest with an autograph? Who's the toughest guy? What funny things have happened to you? What incidents have you had? The women always ask, who's the cutest guy? Who wears the tightest pants? That's what they want to know.
Well, who does wear the tightest pants? Well,
that's not something I look at.
You know, you mentioned Hank Aaron. We have Phil Niekro's jersey up here. I'm curious, in your baseball travels, have you dealt with at all Tommy Aaron or Joe Niekro or any Sib who did play ball compared to their more famous brother?
Actually, all of them, Gaylord Perry and Jim Perry. Jim Perry was pretty good, too. In fact, on July 20th, 1969, the day man first walked on the moon, the Perry brothers won. They won 3 games between them, 3. Jim won both ends of a doubleheader as a relief pitcher. Gaylord won a start, and, big point of the day, Gaylord Perry, who's one of my 10 living 300-game winners, hit the first home run of his career. Now, he came up in '62. This was 7 years later. When he first came up, a writer asked Alvin Dark, what kind of hitter is Gaylord Perry? And Alvin Dark said, Gaylord Perry is such a bad hitter that he won't hit a home run until man walks on the moon. Well, and he went on to hit 7 more after that.
Wow. Is it fair to say that, you know, he was a spitball pitcher? Isn't that breaking the rules?
Well, yeah, but there's some controversy about Roger Clemens, too, that we've heard about. In fact, the only reason I was able to get the Roger Clemens interview was I said to his agent, I'm not going to talk about steroids. I want to talk about his pitching career only. But Roger brought it up during the interview. He said, you know, the last couple of years have been a little tough for me. And I said, I heard, Roger, I heard.
You know, Roger Clemens, I believe, pitched for the University of Texas.
Yes.
Isn't college ball at that level, I forget whether that's the Western Athletic Conference or I can't think of the particular college conference, but even the SEC Southeast Conference, aren't those college teams just as good or if not better than AA ball teams?
Actually, some of them could be better than some of the major league teams we have today because expansion has diluted the pitching so badly, even now, that Kansas City, Pittsburgh, there are some bad teams out there. Houston is not too great either.
Do you have a remedy for baseball? If you were christened to be commissioner for a day or two, what sort of things would you do to improve the game,
Oh,
if anything?
I have lots of ideas. I'm a traditionalist, and I liked it when the best teams reached the World Series, which doesn't happen very often. Now we have two rounds of playoffs you have to get through, excuse me, before you get to the World Series. And most of the times, the best team gets eliminated. A pitcher gets hot, somebody gets hurt, especially in that first round, it's 3 out of 5. So that's the first thing I would do. Make it 4 out of 7 if you're going to have that many rounds of playoffs. Maybe give the team with the best record a bye and put them directly into the championship series and not have that extra set of playoffs in the first round. But I would like to see baseball expand to 32 teams. In other words, add 2 teams. Then have 4 8-team leagues. I mean, when I grew up, that's what baseball had, 8-team leagues. They had 2 8-team leagues then. So have 4 8-team leagues, that's 32 teams. Have 1 set of playoffs, and the winners go right to the World Series. That's one thing I would like to do. They'll never do it because it'll hurt revenue. There'll be less revenue coming in. But you ensure a better caliber of baseball that way. And there are all kinds of other things. Have the All-Star game played on a weekend in the afternoon. You know, I'd like to see that. Have players, fans, and coaches, managers and coaches, not the fans, vote for the All-Star game. I think it's lost its integrity. And definitely, definitely, definitely do not have the winner of the home field advantage of the World Series dependent on who wins the All-Star game. That is a farce and it's an outrage. And also, kill the World Baseball Classic. It interferes with spring training.
Well, should baseball be an Olympic sport?
Yes, very much so. I mean, baseball needs to spread itself internationally. In fact, there's talk now that Major League Baseball is trying to arrange some exhibition games in, I believe it's Italy for 2011. That'd be great.
Yeah. If you could add a chapter to the second printing of the 300 Club, what would it be?
That's a very good question. I hadn't really thought about that, but I will just say, you know, it will be an update on the guys active now who might have a chance. People ask me that all the time. Who might do it? Roy Halladay, no matter how many games he wins for the Phillies, even if he wins 25 games, he's a little bit too old. He's in his 30s already. I just don't think he'll hang around long enough to do it and be healthy enough to do it. I mean, do the math. You got, you know, it's 15 years of 20 wins or 20 years of 15 wins. It's very difficult to do that. CC Sabathia is another one. I think he's not in physically good condition to do it. He's too heavy. And I just don't think he's going to last long enough. And there are a couple other guys. Johan Santana has that surgically repaired elbow. I don't think he's going to be able to last that long. Andy Pettitte also has elbow problems. He's too old. Jamie Moyer, really too old. I mean, he pitched a 2-hit shutout this year and became the oldest man ever to pitch a shutout. But getting to 300 wins, he started the year at about 252. There's no way.
But I'm reminded of Tommy John, and now there's Tommy John surgery.
Right, which of course kept Tommy John from becoming a 300-game winner because he had 288. And when I was interviewing Tommy for the chapter on guys who came close, I said, you know, if you didn't have Tommy John surgery, you'd be in the 300 Club and the Hall of Fame. And he should be in the Hall of Fame because he pitched more, except for Nolan Ryan, he pitched more years than anybody else. He pitched 26 years. Ryan pitched 27.
Wow. The other thing I'm curious about is John broke in with the Cleveland Indians. Are there certain clubs that are really paramount as to pitchers, as to the way of, you will pitch our franchise way of pitching? And are there
yeah, certainly the Braves. Right. I mean, they've had this philosophy to emphasize pitching and defense ever since John Schuerholz went over there. He became the general manager in 1990. After the 1990 season, I should say, but he really rebuilt the team with pitching and defense, and that makes a big difference. The Dodgers also, and Don Sutton came out of that tradition. Don Sutton won more than 300 games, but he only had one 21 season.
What's your take on pitch counts?
Pitch counts are ridiculous. It should be up to each guy what his stamina level is. If he can pitch, I mean, as Don Sutton said, and he's quoted in the book, as saying, to hell with pitch counts. Because it doesn't make any sense. Tom Seaver told me he had a pitch count, but it was 130. But he also told me that John Matlack had a pitch count that was higher than that. So, you know, and Nolan Ryan pitched many games where he threw more than 200 pitches in a game. It didn't stop him from pitching 27 years and throwing 7 no-hitters and fanning 5,000 hitters.
Well, actually, Nolan Ryan, with his connection now with the Texas Rangers, apparently has announced a policy like that. How do you think the players' reunion or agents are going to react to that decree?
Well, they don't like it, especially the union. The guys that represent relief pitchers, Mariano Rivera and others, you know, they want these guys to keep getting big bucks. You know, so they're rejoicing in the philosophy that a starting pitcher works only 6 or 7 innings, and then there are all these bridges to the closer who also gets big bucks. These guys pitch an inning and they get paid as much as the starters. Somehow it's really not fair.
If you could sit down with anyone from baseball history, who would be, let's say, the 3 players that you'd like to assemble for a cup of lemonade and cookies? Oh, all right, maybe we'll make it a brewski or 2.
What are you talking about throughout baseball? I mean, not necessarily people I know.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Throughout baseball history.
Oh, Babe Ruth has to be one of them for sure. Yeah. And probably Walter Johnson, because he had a reputation as a gentleman. He wouldn't pitch inside. Now, if he did pitch inside, just hypothetically, how many more than 416 games would he have won? Plus, he spent his entire career, he's the only 300-game winner, spent his entire career with one team, and it was a lousy team for the most part, the Washington Senators. I mean, they did win a couple of times, but had he had any support, he would have won more than Cy Young did.
Pitching inside, Don Drysdale, Bob Gibson.
Oh, yeah.
But Sandy Koufax would not do that.
No, he was a gentleman. Pedro Martinez is another headhunter.
Yeah.
But Koufax was a gentleman, just like Walter Johnson. He had a reputation of winning with his ability, not intimidating hitters. Just think how much better he might have been. But is it worth it to him? Morally, it wasn't.
But that whole fight that happened between Juan Marichal and Johnny Rosenborough, where Koufax would not pitch inside, so...
Marichal did, for sure.
Well, isn't that a way of controlling? I mean, look at what the Yankees are getting plunked by the Red Sox.
Yes. Well, that happens all the time. There's so much tension between those 2 teams. But you're right about. I remember the Roseboro-Marichal fight vividly, and Koufax was kind of the peacemaker. He rushed in and saying, "No, you can't do this." But you know, some guys have very high moral standards, and just like any walk of life, you find every different stripe of personality in baseball.
With the Braves, their chief rival?
I guess Philadelphia, or it used to be the Mets, but I think Philadelphia is now.
Yeah. And if you had the opportunity to see another rivalry, which would you prefer to see? Yankees-Red Sox or Cubs-Cards? Dodgers-Giants?
Oh, there's some real good ones. And now with interleague play, of course, you've got White Sox and Cubs, which, by the way, interleague play is another thing I would eliminate if I were commissioner for a day. I don't like it, and I think it hurts the World Series too. But I like all the rivalries. Anything that's really intense, it's fabulous.
If you weren't a baseball writer, what would you be?
A travel writer. In fact, I am a travel writer too. In fact, I'm now between conventions. Just came from Reno, going to Orlando, and I founded an organization called the North American Travel Journalists Association. It was founded 19 years ago.
Wow. And the focus of your travel writing, is it domestic, see the USA, or is it, do you span the globe, so to speak? Where have I heard that?
Len Berman.
Yes.
The late lamented Len Berman. I miss him on television. But as far as the travel writing goes, I do primarily domestic or North America. I go to Canada too, Caribbean, but I've done overseas stuff too. I do some work for Sirius XM Satellite Radio. I'm travel editor of the Maggie Linton Show on Sirius XM, and also do some work for a station in Connecticut, WLIS, WMRD, that's in the greater Hartford market. I'm on a show called Travel with Cal occasionally.